Okie dokie. So within IntelliJ, let's refactor things a little bit. So what I want to do is to create a new module in here. And this module, I'm going to name it as clients. So this module will be responsible for having all the clients that we're going to have for our microservices. Also, you can have external clients, meaning that, for example, if you are connecting to Facebook's API or Google's API, then you can put your code in here as well. So I'm going to say finish, and also in here, so leave things as default, finish. Now within this pom.xml, I'm not going to add anything, so we don't need anything just yet. And what we're going to do is let's open up src main, and then within Java, new, and then package com.amigos code dot, and then clients. And then within clients, let's create a new package, and this will be fraud. So this is where we're going to have the classes related to the fraud client, right? So how we're going to connect to the fraud API. So here we have one package, fraud, but then you'll have another one for notification, so on and so forth. Now in here, let's create a new class and just call it as fraud, and then client, and make sure that this is an interface. Now within this interface, let's annotate this with add, and then Feign, and then client. Now this is not working, and that's because we need to add the dependency. Now what I would like to do is for every single other project to be able to use the Feign artifact. So let's open up the main POM in here, and within dependencies, not inside of dependency management, but within dependencies, let's have a new dependency, and this will be Spring Cloud dash starter dash, and then open, and then Feign, just like that, and then reload. So let me just put this full screen so you see everything. There we go. So we are good to go. Now if I go back to the fraud client, in here we can import the class just like that. Now inside of this class, we have to pass a few things. So one is, so if I press Command P in here, so I just want to show you that, have a look. We have value, we have URL, fallback, path, so on and so forth. So when we move to Kubernetes, you'll see that this will change a little bit. And because we are using Eureka Service Discovery, so let me just go to the docs, and in here, so they have, so have a look, the load balancer client will discover the physical address for store. So this is the example for this client in here. If your application is Eureka client, then it will resolve the service with the Eureka service registry. So this is exactly what we have. So let's go back to IntelliJ, and in here, I could just say fraud. And because I want to define the path, I need to say value equals to fraud, and comma, and then path, and then the path is API /v1 / and then fraud. So this path in here is, so this one. So if I open up fraud, and then fraud controller is this one right here. So API, oh, actually it's fraud check. So fraud and then check. So you could leave things like this, or you could just take this. So take the path and remove everything basically. So I'm just showing you a different way of doing things, just like that. And then inside, we need to basically have the API that represents fraud. So if you have a look at the fraud controller, we have this guy right here. So let's just take this get mapping and go back to fraud client, paste that in, and at this point we just have to do this. So here, just remove all of that, remove the body as well. And because this is an interface, so you'll see how this is going to turn out to be. So here we don't need this as well, and we need to end this with semicolon. And then for the path, so in here, so because we didn't include the path in here, we have to say API v1 / fraud check / and then customer ID. Now we also need to have the fraud check response. So in here, let's just take the fraud check response, Command C, and then paste it in and have a look. Now the error went away. Now at this point, so if this is a little bit confusing to you, but basically what is happening is, so this is our fraud client in here, and this right here is an interface which will target fraud controller. So this controller, so it's the exact same thing, but without the method body. So this is OpenFeign in action. Now, at this point, you can see that we can then start removing a couple of things, including this class in here. But this is the client that we have now, that any microservice that wants to talk to fraud, all they need to do is just use this interface and then job done. Next, let's change customer to use this client.